Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's a 2008 Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT8, and it's actually one of the most affordable sleeper SUVs that you can buy. Back when these came out in the mid-2000s, they made 420 horsepower. They had all-wheel drive, and they could easily do a sub 5 seconds 0 to 60, so they were as powerful and as fast as the current generation Corvette. And today I get a review for you guys to help you decide if you might be interested in a sleeper SUV such as this. So you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts to help you decide what do you do with the SRT8 Jeep Grand Cherokee. And big thanks to Twin Falls Chevy for letting me borrow theirs for the day. I'll link it below if you're interested. Otherwise, let's dive right in with this review. But if you're new to the Grand Cherokee, you should know that they first came out back in 1993 with the first generation. This one, however, though, is part of the third generation, which was nicknamed the WK generation, whereas the later SRT8s with the 6.4 Hemi was the WK2 generation. And also, if you're new to my channel, I've driven all of the SRT8 Jeeps. I have an old video of a 6.4 Hemi SRT8, as well as the Trackhawk. But I have driven one of these before, although it's been quite a few years. It honestly feels really good to be back inside where the SRT8 Jeep originally started, and honestly, it's a really good platform. There's a lot to talk about, like the fact that these could go 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. They have a 6.1 liter Hemi, similar to the Charger and the Challenger of the same era, and it's a pushrod V8, so that sounds good. It's easy to modify, and there's a lot of potential if you do want to build one of these to something mild to wild. But if you just want to leave it bone stock, that works too, because this was such a well-balanced platform. Sure, it weighs over 5,000 pounds, and it doesn't get very good gas mileage, but it's fun. You can bring the whole family with you. You can go get your groceries and drive to the track and make some pretty good lap times. And these were even fairly safe vehicles when they came out, as well as being really popular sellers. Not necessarily the SRT8 trim level, but the Grand Cherokee in general. Many years it has sold over 200,000 model units in North America. Although during the recession when this one came out in 08, Jeep Grand Cherokee sales plummeted quite a bit to sub 100,000 at some points, but they've always been a really good seller. This is actually a unibody vehicle. It's not even a body on frame like a lot of people might suspect, especially where they have the big V8 in this one, or you could get a lesser V8, the regular 5.7 Hemi, and a few other configurations of this generation. And although these WK third generations are only sold from 2005 to 2010, Jeep thankfully gave people the option of ordering an SRT8 all the way from 06 to the end of the 2010 model year. And when you're looking at this specific example, keep in mind that it has about 140,000 miles, so it's definitely been driven quite a bit. But what's unfortunate about these is the SRT8 has a gas tank of 21 gallons, but an economy rating of 11 city, 14 highway, so your max road trip and range is only about 295 miles. But does mileage even matter when it sounds this good? And Jeep seriously did a pretty good job packaging this 6.1 liter small block under the hood. It takes up the majority of the space, but thankfully, even though there's not a lot of room to work on it down low, like where the manifolds or headers would be and some of the other aspects, all of the reservoirs are up top, easy to get to, easy to identify and find. The fuse box is the battery. So a lot of the basic maintenance items are right there. You can see this huge covering for the fan up front. And then this one has an aftermarket intake on it, which makes it sound pretty deep, pretty throaty. And based off of what you're gonna see the 0 to 60 turns out to be, I wouldn't be surprised if this one was also tuned or maybe had some PCM modifications. But if you want to know about the nerdy specs or the things that can maybe justify your splurge and how this is a practical vehicle, it's about 15.5 feet long, 5.5 feet tall, and a whopping 7 feet wide. So yeah, it's pretty well stanced and pretty stable on the road. It weighs about 4,800 pounds with that big V8 up front, and then it can tow only about 3,500 pounds because of the sporty suspension, which when you're driving it, you can definitely feel how sharp it feels, especially for the era that it came from. It also only has 7 inches of ground clearance because of the suspension, and then its payload capacity is only 1,050 pounds, so you can only hold 1,050 pounds worth of people or stuff in your Grand Cherokee SRT8. It can do a full circle in 37 feet, and the wheels and tires are a 255, 45, 20, so it's pretty wide. It even has Brembo brakes and forged, lightweight, stronger wheels, and they look pretty good. I'm just about to hop into the interior so I can show you around there, and then we'll take it on the road and get to the 0 to 60 and all that fun stuff. But I do want to mention, this specific example is around $22,000. So for that, depending on your price and your budget, if you are able to build it and you want to build this into something wild, at only 22 grand, you're gonna have a really good platform, a really good base setup. You could always do a forged bottom end, maybe a supercharger on top, and just build the 6.1 liter original Hemi if you want. Or heck, you could probably get that thing out of there, sell that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 grand, whatever the current market value is, and buy a Hellcat engine out of one of the 5 Hellcat models, maybe from a salvage, or just build another engine, throw it in there. But I'm sure for 40 grand, you could have your own version of the Trackhawk that's 700 plus horsepower, which a Trackhawk in bad shape still goes for high 70s, low 80s, or even higher if it's a really low miles example. So you might as well just build your own if you want to use it for drag racing and having some fun. But if we come around to the driver's side, this is the typical Jeep and Dodge key that you get. Thankfully, it does have remote start, which I used earlier, and it works pretty good. But a lot of dark materials, hard. They've aged really well for the age of this 2008. You have a map pocket, some snacks, but no bottle holder in the side. You do have power seats. They are heated. They are leather. They're actually really well bolstered, and they're really cushy. The seats are actually maybe my favorite part of the interior in here. But again, kind of that hard. It's soft, but it's like hard materials. It's not soft touch materials. And OBD 2 port. Your hood release. Rubberized pedals, some ventilation for your sweaty legs when you're winning some drag races. And then sitting inside here, it's the old school Jeep Dodge steering wheel. The horn, that's pretty high pitched. You might want to consider some aftermarket horns if you care, but it does feel really loud. Fires right up. Roars to life. It sounds really healthy. And just a few basic controls on the steering wheel for those little displays right there. Probably the coolest part about the infotainment screen is the CD player hidden behind. It doesn't have an actual storage back there like some Cadillacs do, but you have traction control, your power switch right there, parking sensors, and just HVAC controls, heated seats, a few empty blank buttons, a little bit of a storage right there, a little bit of a storage right there, a little bigger storage right there, and then you can go down to drive and play musical gears with those tiny little buttons to up and down shift. Kind of interesting. Otherwise, some not very deep cup holders, a pencil holder or a CD tray, and then decent size center console with a mesh storage and some coin holders. Otherwise, up top, you actually have auto dimming mirrors, which I think is pretty cool. You have garage door controls, incandescent lighting, your sunroof controls, and your sunglass holder. Otherwise, you even have a light and a mirror to check yourself out. But with that said, let's turn it off and hop in the back. The rear driver's side door panel has all the same materials. Very small snack pocket down there. And those seats, again, the plush, look, the thickness follows the back. But seriously, look how wide those seats are with the bolstering extension right there. At 5'11", sitting behind my driver position, I basically am pushing into the driver. I don't have a lot of room back here. Although this bench is actually really comfortable. I'm currently sitting on the 60 split. Armrest, no cup holders, but that's actually pretty nice. Leather and stitched well. And then down here, I have heated seats. I have that outlet that the button to turn it on was up front. And then I have my plugins for the display up here. So if I want to play some Xbox, I can do that in the back of the SRT8. Otherwise, let's hop out. This even has 35 cubic feet of room when the back seats are up and about 65 feet when they're down. So that's fairly similar to something like a Subaru Forester or a Toyota RAV4, making it a pretty practical sleeper SUV. And since this is a performance SUV, I'm not going to show you the passenger side doors like I usually would in a review. Let's just teleport to one of my favorite roads and see how it drives. Initial driving impressions of the SRT8 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's been probably 7 or 8 years since I've driven a 6.1 Hemi Grand Cherokee. And how does it feel compared to driving the 6.4 and the Trackhawk, which is the same platform, basically the same generation WK2 as the 6.4 and the Hellcat, how they're the same. This feels really good. The windshield's not super tall, but I do have good visibility. I feel like I sit up pretty high in here. Side window, visibility pretty good. 8 pillar with the grab bar. not too thick. B-pillar, not too bad either. And if we work our way back, the C and the D aren't that bad either. The side mirrors do a really good job of showing you what's going on. The speakers in here are not fantastic, but for being, you know, almost 20 years old, I can't blame them. The rear view mirror goes right down the center because this Jeep is not that long, but it does feel like it has the old school Dodge Ram type of steering wheel and a lot of hard plastics in here. For how expensive this thing was, you might think that it would have a nicer interior, but nope. The seats, they're comfy, they're cushy, they're pretty thick, and the bolstering actually holds you in pretty well, at least it does for my backpack and I. But a lot of the other materials, hard touch. But when you have to take it around a corner, even going, say, 20 miles an hour, it's pretty flat. It feels good. There is a little bit of drone that can sometimes happen with this exhaust around 1500 RPM. Not right now, maybe depending on the gear it's in. There it is. That doesn't sound very good. But once you get into a different RPM range or you get off the throttle and let it decelerate, it goes away. Wind noise, I can hear a little bit, but it's not very windy out today, so today's not a good testament to that. But the power is what this thing's all about, even under light acceleration, just rolling out of gear. It feels healthy, it roars loudly, and in person, this feels like something really special. If you guys get the opportunity to buy one, to drive one, whatever you're gonna do with it, ride in one, I don't care, just enjoy one, have some fun, experience it. The 6.1 Hemi, it's not as powerful as the 6.4, but for being a few years earlier, I think this was a really cool vehicle, and I definitely think that this was a sleeper back then, especially when this came out with 420 horse and had as much power, actually a little bit more than the same year LS2 Corvette. So I think Jeep did a really good job incorporating SRT into the Grand Cherokee nameplate. Anyways, guys, let's get to a 0 to 60, see how fast it is, and then we'll get to my final thoughts. 0 to 60, traction is off. I'll do a light brake rev. Density altitude's over 3,000 feet though, so this is down on power over 10%. Let's go. And true 0 to 60 came in at 4.89 seconds. That's without just subtracting rollout. So that's why I think this is a sleeper SUV from 20 years ago. Overall, my final thoughts of this 2008 SRT8 Grand Cherokee is it's a really good muscle SUV. And after driving the Trackhawk and several of the 6.4 Grand Cherokees, I really like this one. With the basic, intake and probably tune modification it has, it really punches harder than I expected it to at our altitude, being over half a mile above sea level equivalent. It's impressive. It's not huge on the inside, especially the back seats. You guys saw that wasn't the most practical, but it does have a lot of cargo capacity. This is only a little over $20,000, which when they were brand new, they were $42,000, which in today's value is about $64,000. So it's really only a third of the value it was brand new. And that means if you want something like this, you might have a lot of money left in your budget to play around with it, to refresh it, to make it yours, and to build it exactly how you want. So I do think that this could be a really good vehicle for someone looking for a sleeper SUV, especially one that a lot of people are gonna overlook. This one doesn't have the big fancy hood scoops. It doesn't have the supercharger badge. It doesn't resemble the new or the newest Trackhawk in very many ways. But if you guys like the SRT8 Jeep, if you like my video, please consider liking the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below your thoughts and opinions and what you want to see more of. And I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, take care.